Financial Strategy Committee, Councillor Peter Rawlinson.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Budget and Financial Strategy Committee meeting. Let's go straight in. Apologies for absence and any substitutes. Do we have any?
No apology for absence, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Next item, declarations of interest. Any declarations? No, can't see any. Right, fine. Minutes of the last meeting have been circulated. Any comments on those? No. Right, okay. Is it your wish I sign them in due course?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Chairman's announcements. Yeah. Yesterday, I spoke at the West Northants executive meeting. One of the items on the agenda was the council tax reduction scheme going out to consultation with a view to making it 26.5%. Obviously, they have to go out to consultation and it's not fixed at this stage, but I felt there was a need to advance the case of South Northamptonshire residents who would be severely impacted by that, far more than Daventry or the borough. So I felt it was worth making our views known. And at this stage, I know Belinda was heavily involved in the work on that with the West. So I thought it would be useful for all members of this committee to gain a bit of understanding about what has been done and how they got to where they are. So Belinda, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just by a little bit of background, really, obviously members know that each year as a billing authority we're required to set a council tax reduction scheme. Pensioner scheme is still in default regs, so we don't need to do anything about that. That's already protected and pensioners continue to get the same levels of support as they always have done, even under council tax benefit. So there's that local discretion attached to the working age customers, and for South Northants, as you know, for all the way through since 2013, we've had an 8.5% scheme, which means working age people will pay at least 8.5% of their council tax liability. We're now in the position where we find ourselves looking to set a scheme for the new West Northants Council. We've been doing a considerable amount of work with the task and finish group that was established, and that's been running since June, where we've been taking a lot of financial modelling backwards and forwards. So the schemes are they're very different across the three authorities. Daventry have got a 20% scheme, so the minimum that a working age person would have to pay is 20%. And the Northampton Borough, a bit complicated because they work theirs out slightly differently, and it's neither wrong or right because it's a local scheme, but theirs works out a 31% scheme. So working age people have to pay at least 31% of their council tax. And then South Northants with their 8.5%. So the task and finish groups were set up in June to also look at council tax harmonisation, and we've taken a lot of modelling forward, lots of impacts on customers, a lot of what does a caseload look like, because all the modelling we've done is based on the caseload as at now. So obviously that may well change depending on the impact of COVID, etc., as we move forward. South Northants have got around 1,500 working age customers who will be impacted by any new scheme. Northampton Borough have got almost 10,000, and Daventry just short of 2,000 customers. So all the modelling that was done, all the financial modelling, if we wanted to introduce a scheme that was, fair to everybody and brought us into a break-even point, for want of a better word, so it didn't cost us any, it's cost neutral, it would mean we were looking at a 26.5% scheme as we move forward. So we've Task and Finish Group made some recommendations. A report went forward to executive last night, to the West Northamptonshire executive, asking for permission to consult on a 26.5% scheme. Now that is, as Councillor Rawlinson says, that is just for consultation purposes at this stage. There are also some tweaks to the schemes because the schemes weren't the same. They're all local schemes, but they're not huge. They would just affect new claims moving forward. So, for example, slightly different ways of assessing the claims, but it would mean that everybody had then a harmonised council tax reduction scheme. The consultation that we've now been approval was given to move forward will start on Monday. So I've been working hard with the comms team at all of the councils and also at NCC to try and get an online consultation process going. I mean, one of the important things that the Task and Finish group members stressed was they wanted us to reach out to everybody that may be impacted by this. So we're also going to write out to all customers in receipt of local council tax reduction. So all those people will have a letter inviting them to go online and complete the application, their online consultation. If they can't, there's going to be a dedicated phone line that they can phone and get some help to complete it. We've also got an email address that will be picked up and monitored. So there's several different methods by which people can actually take part in the consultation. We're also going to reach out to all the stakeholders, housing associations, etc. That will be done over the first part of the consultation period, so that we make sure that we reach as many people as we possibly can. A press release is due to go out as we go live on the 2nd of November as well, and an all-member briefing will go out at the end of this week just to explain what's happening and the fact the consultation goes live. It's going live for a 6-week period, so it will actually end on the 13th of December. And then quite quickly the results will need to be analysed and go back into the executive meeting in January, because the schemes, as members probably recall, have to be in place by the 31st of January prior to the April for the scheme to start. One thing we did discuss sort of broadly last night was the option to harmonise the schemes over a period of time, and that's something that MHCLG say is possible if we can show that we can't set a scheme, I think is really what they're saying. So at this stage we could set a scheme, but we're still working with MHCLG to see if there's anything we could do about harmonising it over a period of time, which would mean people would be less impacted immediately by the new scheme. I'm happy to take any questions. I know I've gone through that quite quickly, but I didn't know how much detail you'd want me to go into this evening. But I'd be happy to do, if it would help, is just do a briefing note to send around to members of Budget and Financial, just to outline some of the things I've said, because I'm aware it's a verbal update, which sometimes it's nice to have something to have a look at afterwards.
Yes, I think that would be very, very useful. Thank you very much for that, Belinda. I've seen Chris has got his hand up, then Rosie, then Ken. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I actually sit on the Task and Finish group, and I think it's fair to say that there was an awful lot of discussion around this. And I know that the Chair, Councillor Rebecca Breeze, was also very concerned about the impact that there's going to be on South Northamptonshire residents. I strongly argued to try and reduce the levelling up that South Northants residents would have to face, because in effect what they're doing is they are subsidising the residents in Northampton, because the residents in Northampton that receive council tax reduction will actually not have to pay as much at the expense of the residents in South Northamptonshire, and I think that is morally wrong. I also think that it is wrong that the Task and Finish group set the parameter that they wanted to achieve the same cost overall of the new scheme to the present scheme. And if they'd made a different decision that said they were willing to, in the first year, accept that the cost would rise slightly, we could actually have harmonised at a lower rate. And you then have because you set this, the local council tax reduction scheme every year. So in the first year, we could have taken a hit on the total cost, reduced the impact on South Northamptonshire residents, and then in subsequent years, slowly increased it. But that was rejected. And I think it's a great shame that the councillors that don't represent South North Hants weren't willing to help our residents. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Rosie next.
Who did? Sorry. Just a few things. Could you actually put it in terms of cash? What actual money for an average house are people paying now and will then be expected to pay? What do you actually expect from the consultation? Oh yes, of course, I'd love to pay more money in council tax. Tick. And if you get an overwhelming, this is horrendous, we can't afford it, what actually you're going to do about it? Therefore, what is the point of actually conducting any consultation if you're going to go ahead with it anyway? And thirdly, taking Chris Loft's point, I did expect that there would be a time frame at which we could actually do the harmonisation over the period of the first council. And could we not use some of the government money that's being put in to assist the COVID situation and the people that are going to be badly affected? Because we've got a perfect storm coming here, haven't we? We've got COVID, we've got people losing their jobs, we've got people not being able to pay their bills. So the scheme will be expanding, but actually we're going to be asking them to pay more money. So does the council want to be taking people to court on their council tax and being the straw that breaks the camel's back? I don't think so. You know, we as I say, this is coming because of harmonisation, but it's coming at a really difficult time, and we've got this perfect storm where the two things are colliding. So those are my comments. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. Belinda, did you want to just come back on those points about numbers?
Yeah, certainly. We've got some case studies. I don't think it'd be helpful if when I do my briefing note, I circulate the case studies we've done as well, which do show impacts on various, you know, sort of case studies that we've done across the district and based on different options that we had as well. And also I can include in the briefing note some figures for you about, you know, how much, for example, if we went to a 20% scheme, the modelling shows it would cost the new unitary around 880,000 more. So I can include some of those sorts of figures and background figures if it would be helpful as well, because we certainly put forward, as Councillor Rawlinson said, put lots and lots of modelling figures forward, and, you know, the members of Task and Finish definitely went through a lot of detail on this. So I could easily put that in my briefing note if it would help.
Yeah, I would definitely more interested in what it actually is going to cost the actual person living in number 10, you know,
yes.
than how much it's actually going to be costing the new council. I really want to know the effect on individuals.
The impact, yeah. No problem.
And what are we going to do? Because have you done any modelling on the fact that, you know, if we have a 10%, 20% or whatever, who are going to be falling into the category that aren't in the category, you know, last year and the year before? What are we going to do if, you know, we get you know, massive redundancies and lots of people on universal credit? What are we going to do if we actually have to do more and have more people on the universal credit? What does that do to the figures?
Yeah. Yes, and I totally agree, because we did say that the modelling we'd done was based as at now. If those figures change any time over the next 3 to 6 months, for example, you know, those modelling figures will change again. And I, you know, rather think that we need to be keeping an eye on that through the consultation period, so that if we need to redo any of the modelling, we'll definitely do that and bring it back to members, because I totally understand, because in the council tax reduction, caseload increased quite a lot when COVID first hit, and it hasn't decreased. It stayed at that level. So depending on the impact from everything we've got coming up now with, you know, the change in the government support, that may go up again. But yeah, we've done quite a lot of case studies based on different scenarios, which I'll certainly send around with my notes. And then if you'd like any further information after that, you know, I can go through it by all means.
Thanks, Belinda.
Thank you,
Belinda. Right, Ken was next, then Carol, then Alan.
Thank you. With regards to, and in fact, Rosie actually has stolen the thing with regards to my question with regards to an example. But is there anything, Belinda, that you can actually just off the top of your head say it's roughly going to be, I don't know, a financial increase of whatever it may be? I appreciate that we will get the full details, but it'd be rather nice to have an indication of a standard household, how much they really are expected to pay at 26.5%.
Yeah.
And secondly, taking up Councillor Loft's comments, could you please, or whoever could, give me a breakdown of the councillors that approved this, whether they were Northampton Borough, whether they were Daventry, and whether they were SNC?
Just to pick up on the first point about the case studies, it is quite difficult to say here and now because everybody's circumstances are so different. So it's as you know, it's means tested. So it depends. I mean, I think the average payment for a South Northants household at the moment on a Band B property is around about £4 to £5 a month. So that gives you a rough idea. But the working examples, what I've done on those is put all the income that we've used, so you'll be able to see exactly what the household's got coming in and the impact of each of the options. So it is quite difficult to say without going through all the individual circumstances. But I'll send the case studies round to see if they give you an idea. Yeah. And I guess we could give the names of the people on. I can send you that as well on Task and Finish group by all means.
Was there predominantly Northampton Borough members on the Task and Finish group?
No, I think that it was the Task and Finish groups were fairly balanced, and certainly the executive is balanced with 2 from Daventry, 2 from SNC, 2 from the borough, and 2 from the county.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Right. Okay. And it was Carol next.
Thank you, Chairman. I just quickly wrote down some figures, and I don't mean to cause any issues here. And I take Belinda's point about how complicated they all are and how everybody is different. But let's say that somebody's council tax bill in a year is £1,500. Somebody who is only paying 8.5% of it will be paying between £120 and £130 a year. That is £10 a month. If you increase that share from 8.5% to 26.5%, they will be paying £400 a year or thereabouts, which is an increase of £5 a week. So over and above £10 a month, they will be paying an extra £5 a week. Their payment, their contribution will be more than trebled, which is a very simple thing to say, 8.5% to 26.5%. Yeah, that's quite easily there. But in monetary terms, it is not going to be coppers. It is going to be at least £5 a week on that very, very crude calculation. Wow. And if you haven't got £5 doesn't seem a lot, but if you haven't got it, it's an awful lot.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carol. Right, Alan was next.
Yeah, I suppose I better declare, because I sit on the West Northants Scrutiny Committee, and this came across us. I wasn't at the last meeting because I couldn't go, but I think it was the meeting before, and they was talking about 19.9%. But what I'm interested in is when you say harmonisation has to take place in the first year. I was of the belief that harmonisation could take place over the course of the elected council. Now, if you say that legally they can't do it, where is the legalities in that in relation to the amount that we've got, or sorry, our residents have got to raise against the other 2 areas? And I don't want to get into, well, they're Daventry and they're Northampton and they voted against us and that all the other. What I thought the whole idea of the harmonisation was that everybody sort of it came together like that, not just in one lump. We pay more and everybody else pays down there, like. So can you just explain what the legality is about the time of harmonisation?
I think there's 2 sorts of harmonisation. One is council tax.
Yeah.
which is the amount the various areas charge, and for some unknown reason that can be spread over, I think it's 7 years, Belinda.
7 years.
So you can bring them
That's where I'm getting from.
together down, but say for the council tax reduction scheme, it is treated differently in law, and I believe it's something like they have to be brought together within 1 year unless there are compelling circumstances for not doing so.
Yeah.
And the compelling circumstances are not defined by government.
Yeah,
Even if you had, sorry if I'm forgetting, even if you had a referendum and it was 100% against doing exactly what's being asked. So that's not compelling, is it? So there's the, coming back to what Rosie was saying in relation to putting it out for consultation, right? So if it goes out to consultation, fine, and everybody comes back to us and says, we don't want nothing to do with that, therefore we reject it. So I'm using 100% just to make a case, but you know, what you say it has to be a compelling case, but you equally in the next phrase, Peter, no disrespect to yourself, is that, but I don't know what compelling is. So if you're going to put a survey out to find out something, and it's not going to be legal or not compelling, then as Rosie says, is it actually worth doing it?
Yeah.
And let us councillors fight it and see how we get that on that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is a legal obligation on us to actually consult on it. So you know, and I agree that you know we're not going to get many people coming back and saying, you know, I want to pay more. But interestingly, when we've done surveys at South Northants, we presumably we've had responses from people who are probably not on the scheme saying they should pay more.
Yeah, yes, we have. Yeah. And I think, yeah, you're right. The consultation, Chair, you know, and Councillor Walker we have that legal requirement to consult. So I guess that the results of the consultation will be analysed and fed back. And I guess so. The other issue is what, you know, that harmonisation over a longer period of time, which is MHLG are saying you can't do that unless you've got a compelling reason why you can't set a scheme. I think that's the difference there. So I do understand what you're saying, but I think the results of the consultation will come back. Members will consider them. But if we were saying we can't set a scheme in the first year, but I think we have gone back to MHCLG, as I understand it, to ask them to relook at it. So I think that's still very much in the mix. I think that's still very much, you know, something that we're following.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is certainly what Rebecca said last night, that they had not sort of given up on MHCLG and were still lobbying hard to get an opportunity to take more time to harmonise it. And I certainly made the point, as Chris did, that you know we didn't necessarily have to balance the figures in year one. And I also made the point that, which I think probably went back to sort of Rosie's point, that if you are charging 8.5% of an amount, you know, a smaller percentage actually paid is worth more than the larger percentage that people can't pay. So all you're doing then is adding to the collection costs, and at the end of the day, you possibly get nothing. Yeah, Rosie.
I'm just wondering whether we shouldn't, I don't know whether Andrea knows about this, but do you not think we should be actually alerting the MPs to this? Because I'm sure this is not what they want to be happening at this moment in time. It does not make sense with people losing their jobs due to COVID to be actually making people bankrupt and homeless due to us, you know, insisting on raising the council tax that they have to pay. And I just wonder whether there's any other way that we can look at some other funds. They seem to be handing out, you know, all sorts of emergency funds, right, left and centre. I just wonder whether there isn't some other inventive way that we can be looking at easing this burden at this particular time and giving us longer to actually get to a balanced position.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think we should be tireless in looking for, you know, alternatives. And you know, yes, it's gone out to consultation, but I don't think we will stop there.
So is anybody going to actually raise it specifically and with Andrea?
I'm sure we can get it probably best coming
with a letter explaining exactly what the issues are, and it's going to be going out to consultation, because she'll hear about it obviously through her surgeries and all the rest of it when the consultation goes. But I think it would be helpful for her to have a proper briefing before the consultation goes out as to what the issues are and whether she can think of doing any lobbying or think of anything else that can happen at central government level.
We do have residents in other constituencies, Chairman, so we probably need not to only write to Andrea Leadsom.
Yeah. Chris and Michael Ellis and
Andrew Lure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Any further comments on that?
Well, I was just going to echo, if I could, through the chair, similar comments to Rose's, and I'd use the words perfect storm. And I think that's where we're heading, not only just in COVID, but everything else around it. And it'll be disastrous for South North Hants to allow that to happen.
Thank you. Right. Well, thank you all for that. I think that was a useful exchange of views, and thank you very much, Belinda, for giving us a bit of detail on that. So.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. And I'll send the briefing note round as well. And if you've got any questions after that, then please just let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think you've got to go off to another meeting now.
I have, yeah. But thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, Belinda. Thank you. Right. Okay. We will move on to the next item, which is urgent business, which we don't have any.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry I was a minute late logging on. Or you were a minute early starting. I won't go into that one. But under declarations of interest, I would just like to register the fact that I am a director and NED of CSN Resources, just in case any questions come up under item 6.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So finance monitoring report. This time, you'll be pleased to know that this is the end of Q2 monitoring report. Last time we had the end of Q1 monitoring report, but this time we are the first committee to actually look at it. So, and I think Denise is going to handle this one. So over to you, Denise. Thank you.
If I can just take you, the recommendations at the moment are to recommend to note the contents of the report. If I can just take you down to point 3.3, we've actually got a surplus of £9,000 at this point in time, and that's actually representative of the whole year. And what we're looking at is the COVID costs at the moment of just over £2 million. There's then business rates. We've had Section 31 grant at the moment for the whole year. But some of that, because of timing differences, doesn't actually reflect until next year. So what that means is we need to put £3.9 million into reserves at the moment so that that's available for next year. That brings us to a total cost at the moment of just over £6 million, which is quite substantial. However, on the funding side, then we then have received grants, COVID grants, currently £1.6 million worth. Then got the business rates grants, Section 31 grant, and we have a surplus on there at the moment of 3.8 million. That's the one we're going to put into reserves. And we've got the surplus of 530,000 from last year. The total funding income then is again £6 million. There's actually 43,000 between the two. The non-COVID surplus we've got at the moment. So our business as usual surplus is 52,000. The 52,000 less the 43 of the COVID brings us down to 9,000 surplus at this point in time on the revenue. That actually represents our realistic position at this point in time for the year. In 3.4, we then make reference to the worst case scenario, because we're conscious at this point in time that we're partway through the year. We don't really know what's going to absolutely come through to us in the next second half of the year. Is COVID, how much that's going to impact on us? And that really could then go either way. In a best case scenario, we could be £500,000 better off. In a worst case scenario, we could be £500,000 worse off. What we don't then know is if we will receive further grant funding towards that or not. So it's just to give you a feel for how we think those figures could move, depending on how COVID comes through to us in the second half of the year. In 3.5 then, we have the capital programme, and at the moment that is progressing, and we have an underspend on that potential for the year of £137,000 at the moment. And there is some expenditure to be carried forward through to next year, just through to some slippage. That's about 783,000 at this point in time. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise, for that. I mean, I think as you can see, yeah, there's a wide sort of divergence in how things could go. We have had, as Denise said, considerable grants. What it doesn't include at this stage is the tranche 4 grants, which were announced a week or two ago, which has given us another 100,000, which, if the worst case scenario happens, we could, would be useful. But so right. We've got Alan first. Did you want to say anything? Sorry, you're on mute.
I didn't actually put my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's probably for last time.
I will ask a question though, if you want me to.
Okay, please do.
So if we, on the basis of, if we have a surplus as it stands at the moment of 9k, how does that hit our actual reserves with our treasury management reserves?
Well, it presumably makes very.
Does that work that out?
I mean, yeah. What we would normally do at the end of the year is, any underspend, we will put into our general reserve. But 9k is worth probably diddly squat at the moment on deposit.
Right.
That would go into reserve in that sense if we were still with the 9k or any surplus at the end of the year, and that would go into the general fund reserves unless it was to be allocated to a specific COVID reserve or something like that. What we don't know yet, obviously, is just that throughput to the end of the year at this point in time, if there's going to be any further call on reserves or not.
Can I then ask a very stupid, probably a very stupid question, because I should know the answer to this and it's been asked before. Have we actually established how much it's going to cost us at South Northants when we go unitary? Does that not come into the equation?
I think that's already accounted for, isn't it, Denise?
Oh,
yes, that was a reserve set up of 2.5 million, and that's been drawn down as the expenditure goes through at this point in time. So I think we've just paid another bill for about £150,000, something like that. Daventry are coordinating all those accounts for everybody and fully reconciling those. So they put the bills through as and when that expenditure is called upon.
Yeah. But effectively, we have fully accounted for that in the near March reserve. And while I was watching last night, they had a financial update at the West Exec, and they are on track for costs, so they're not going to be coming back and asking for more money. You'll be pleased to know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Denise, for that. So are we happy to duly note the report?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you all for that. And then we will move on to the final item, which is review of the work plan. And just need to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, do we have a work plan? Which is
Mr. Chairman, we do not have a work programme, but it was more included as a verbal update on future business of the committee. Obviously, these meetings now being held ad hoc if needed, seeing as the council's not setting a budget this year. It's just this item exists purely as an opportunity for any other officers to provide any verbal update on what may be coming in the future.
Yeah. I think we have one early December is the next one that is in the calendar, and I think our idea then was to actually review the next monitoring report, wasn't it, Denise? I think that we worked out that that would roughly be the right time to do it.
Monitoring for December would only include the November position, so
Yeah, well,
January would have the December.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant the meeting would be in December. Therefore, we could review the November report.
Yes, by all means.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think we can also perhaps have a further update under Chairman's announcements verbally on progress on the West's budget, because I think probably by that time it would certainly be at a stage where if it wasn't actually going out to consultation, it was at least available for the West Scrutiny Committee to be commenting on it. So we would have a bit more detail of the whole picture rather than just the bits that Belinda enlightened us on today. So, okay then. Happy with that, Richard?
Yeah, that's fine. With regards to the verbal update on the West budget, given that it's a little while off the December meeting, we've probably got enough time for that to be included as a verbal update and an item in its own right, if everybody's happy with that.
Yep, fine. Good. Okay then. Well, thank you all very much for your attendance. I wish you a pleasurable rest of the evening, and thanks for attending. Okay.
Thank you.
Cheerio.